I love that. I effing love that. What a great attitude. Where was that? Dr. Spock? You couldn't have come up with that for our family, for our kids, when we were kids?
Did you push record?
Welcome back to Second Act TV. We are continuing our third segment with Steve Dotto from Dotto Tech and Gray Matters. Steve, thanks so much for joining me again.
I am enjoying this.
Well, as I just said, it's our third segment, which means you do the math. We've done another two. We'll link to those. Steve, of course, is in the tech space. He is what I call a YouTube celebrity, especially for us, the baby boomers. He has created a channel with over 250,000 subscribers, Dotto Tech. And then, about a year ago, so you launched Gray Matters, which by the title is geared towards baby boomers and, recreating life in this tech world and in this tech space on YouTube. And we left our last segment, the way we left it is that, a lot of us have that spark. We want to do something. We not only need, but want to recreate. But there is a distinct fear of failure that we bring to the table, and some of us don't feel like we can overcome. Steve, I want to talk to you about that because you have a very interesting take on it, which I'll link to as well.
And I'm not an expert on this. I'm very nascent in it, and it's just I feel like I was late to the party on this entire concept. But I did a podcast on it that's gotten a lot of traction, and it's sparked a lot of conversation. So here's the thing: as baby boomers, failure was like the worst thing we could do. I went to Catholic school. Did you go to Catholic school? I went Our Lady of the Bleeding Knuckles, and the teachers would whack us, and they would failure. Anytime we did anything wrong, we were never encouraged through failure. No. It was like, you are a loser, Dotto. You're never going to amount to anything. I'm going to tell your parents how bad you were. And my parents were disappointed in me. And I I don't know how any of us grew up mentally healthy at all.
I don't know.
Failure to baby boomers is horrendous. Well, I'm out to dinner a couple of months ago with a millennial, very successful startup company doing really well. So there's a bunch of these different online super successful millennials all having dinner, and this one old fart sitting in the corner. Hello. And I'm talking to these guys. And one of them says, I don't know how the conversation came up, but he talked about how he is raising his children. And he talked about how he talks to them every evening about failure. And he says, what did you fail at today? And they tell him what they failed at. And he said, good. What did you learn from that? And so the word failure is not a negative. It's not an indictment. They're talking about it as a springboard to success, that you have to fail in order to success. And that's the concept of failing forward, is if you take the chance, if you fail, it's not failure, it's learning. It's gaining experience. It's gaining the skill set to succeed, to move, and maybe even succeed needs to be kind of looked at in a different term, because in the failure, in the act of doing, you are already successful. And I went, I love that. I effing love that. What a great attitude. Where was that? Dr. Spock? You couldn't have come up with that for our family, for our kids, when we were kids? I mean, God, that's so much better than what we went through. So it got me thinking in my own life and in my own career and in what we're doing with Gray Matters. And it just sparked my imagination so much with this concept that we have to reframe in our mind. And this is going to be a tough one for us, because baby boomers, it's ingrained in us for 50, 60, 70 years. We've been taught that failure is wrong. So we look at people who fail as losers, and we are far more critical of ourselves than anybody else. And when we fail, we apologize, we feel bad, we get depressed. And man, oh man, if we can look at it and go, oh yeah, that didn't work the way I wanted it to, but what did I learn from it? And we can avoid that self-recrimination. I guess a couple of things happen. The first is we're willing to take more chances. Because how often do we do something that we know will succeed? All the time. Because I've done this before. So exactly how much are we stretching ourselves? What sort of a chance? How well are we moving the ball downfield? pretty slow.
Yeah.
Whereas when we take the chance, when we take a bigger chance, we might fall short, but we've moved the ball way farther downfield. And so I just think that for us, and with the limited time, the fact that we all recognize the mortal coil at this point, and we realize that, small incremental gains are not what we're looking for anymore, right? If you're pivoting, if you're reinventing yourself, this isn't a small change that's happening in our lives. And so many of us are facing that. Going from the comfort of a corporate job to entrepreneurship, shifting from what you did to something new. Those are huge changes. And I would, without any evidence other than my own intuition, I would say that fear of failure is the number one thing that stops us.
I agree.
Yeah. So if we can reframe that, maybe more of us will take the chance. More of us will succeed. And more of us will fail forward. That's kind of my hope.
Yeah, no, I agree. We talk about that a lot because it's the fear of failure that keeps you back, or it keeps you from trying. There is, I suppose, at our age, the practical side of it. When it comes to financial failure, how much can you risk? Should you risk? The S word.
I'm not the ideal person to talk about that because I've always been fairly cavalier with my attitude towards finances. Money is something that I think that you can kind of turn on and off the spigot for and make or not make, because that's the spirit of the entrepreneur, right? So I know that there are ways I can make more money if I need to, and I just don't want to. So I'm not the best person to ask for that. And I know that we all have different thresholds for risk. But typically speaking, where the failure occurs, where our fear of failure is concerned, it's on how we're going to be perceived or how our product is going to land. That I can speak to quite well. And for example, a lot of people are afraid to fail doing a live stream video. Just as something as simple as that. What we're doing right here, recording a video. The first time you did that, you were probably afraid that you would come off looking stupid, or you would look, all of these things, or you would say something that's not quite right and people would laugh at you. Did you have that fear?
Oh, I still have it. I haven't done a live yet. I'll be the first to admit it.
So let's do this. Let's do this little exercise, which I do with everybody, and I don't know why this is so hard for us to understand. But let's flip the switch. Flip roles. You're watching me do a video right now. And let's pretend this is live. And did I stumble? I think I might have stumbled in a word at some point in this conversation. And if I stumble on a live, I'm going to be going, if I have fear of failure, I'm going to be thinking, that's a failure. I didn't say that clearly and elegantly and eloquently, and everybody's going to laugh at me. But guess what? Nobody's laughing at me. They're interested in what I'm saying. The only reason that they're going to feel uncomfortable is if I am uncomfortable. If it bothers me, it's going to bother you. This is the thing. And if you put yourself in that position, you will recognize that we aren't, by and large, judgmental creatures. We're empathetic. And it's the empathy that causes the problem because you feel uneasy about it. And that's the context. So, I mean, this all dovetails with the entire fear of failure. It's a fear of being judged, fear of being found wanting, fear of not being respected. All of those kind of are a lethal cocktail of resistance that causes us to hold back and not do and not take chances and do things. So, and it's easier for a guy. I think if everybody here is baby boomers, we can be a little bit sexist. It's easier for us to do things on video because we're not as concerned without people judging our appearances and stuff like that. We don't have those historical concerns. Not as much. Maybe we should.
Embedded, yeah.
I don't. Oh yeah. I mean, you put on makeup this morning, didn't you? Before we got on, I imagine. Yeah, I did. But it's way easier for me, and I recognize that. And we have to recognize people's sensibilities from that point of view. But also, you have to look at yourself with the same grace as you look at others. And if we can do that, that's a gift. If we can do that, then we will take the chances. Then when we do make mistakes or we have errors, we won't consider them to be the negatives that, we won't classify them as failure, and you again get an opportunity to move things downfield. It kills me that fear is something that somebody in our 60s will stop us from doing something, because we're competent. We've been through it. I mean, all of us have the life experience and the trials and tribulations that we've been through. Nobody reaches our age and has had an easy time.
Yeah.
It isn't as difficult as previous generations, but it's still, we've all had our trials and we've all had to go through all of them. So what are you afraid of, right? So look at yourself the same way as you look at others, and let's see if we can reframe what failure is. So I'm looking forward to seeing your next live. Your first live. No pressure.
We've talked about it. I don't know why I have such a resistance to that. I think part of, like what you said, the Catholic school, just having, come up as a producer, and everything always had to be perfect.
Oh, yeah.
For 20. And I did some on camera. I was behind the camera. I was a producer. But everything had to be perfect. And that still is in me. So I want it to be perfect. Even when I edit sometimes, I just, what are you doing this silk? It's okay to leave that eye in here. So this is something that I'm working on myself to get over that. And I love the way that you couched it. And I think a lot of people that will resonate as well. Just be empathetic, because we're our harshest critic, and that's not necessary. Yeah.
Yeah, it's endemic with our maybe it's a human condition, but it's definitely a generational condition that we all have.
Yeah.
But if you stop and you boil it back and you kind of peel away all of the just how we've accepted these as our norms of the way we think, and you start thinking about how you think, we can do away with a couple of these tropes and these things that we've done in the past, and maybe better late than never as far as that goes. And for so many of our generation, this is so important, because so many of and again, it'll be a little bit sexist, but so many women just don't like the way they look anymore. They feel they're being judged about how they look, and so getting in front of the camera and doing those things is difficult for them. And that's, I mean, in the Gray Matters podcast that I do, I'm celebrating gray. I'm saying, this is all a good thing, and lean into who you are, and trust that we're fascinated by you and not staring at your roots. But that takes, it's going to be, I realize it's going to be a long journey.
Yeah, and it'll be a long journey, because there is some of that judgment is alive and well, unfortunately. But not from people who are intelligent and empathetic and are on a spiritual growth journey, versus just stuck in the 20s or something. And I'm talking about some, comments that you get on YouTube, and you alluded to that earlier. Is the space can get very ugly, and that's something to prepare people for. Where 90% is great, but that 10%, and you have to have some thick skin to operate in this space.
That's another. Give yourself the grace that you give that you offer to others. If you start publishing in any public forum, you will get people that are idiots in criticizing you. And I look forward to it, because I've got I've got a solid enough ego that it doesn't really bother me. And even so, I say that I do read every negative comment. I don't read every positive comment.
Yes, but isn't that funny? Yeah.
Too many of us take to heart the negative comments. And they actually affect our sense of well-being and our happiness. And increasingly, I'm recognizing that the people who are driven towards being a jackass have bigger problems than I do, and I kind of feel sorry for them.
Exactly.
It's not going to stop me from snapping back on them as hard as I can, but it's going to affect how it affects how I feel. And seriously, we do. I'm sure that you on your channel get 10 or 20 or 30 comments that are positive and affirming for every Yahoo that jumps on and says something out of it. And you'll get more out of line comments than I will, because
the topic matters.
You're a woman, and so much of your topics about relationships and sex and other things like that kind of that draws a different group. People don't get they don't get their knickers in a knot over Gmail. Really, and if they do, man, they got bigger problems.
Yeah, divorce after 50 is another thing.
Yes, exactly.
Well,
exactly.
Steve, this has been so fun talking to you, and I just applaud you and thank you for what you've brought to the table, and how you are in this leadership position amongst us baby boomers, because I agree with you. There's a world of opportunity out there that so many people are just so hesitant or fearful to enter when it could be just life-changing. Obviously, we will link to all of your information, to your channels, to your website. Is there anything else you want us to know about you before we sign off today?
Well, sort of. I just want to thank you for putting yourself out there and having this channel, Second Life, which is, we're on parallel courses as far as what we're trying to do for our community. So I want to applaud you as well and encourage you to really take the ball and run with it. Have some, take some chances with this channel and make it as vibrant and as vital as possible. I know, as well as I, that there's lots more in the tank here.
Yeah, there is, and I look for, and yeah, I hope you and I will do more together. This has been so fun. There's stuff that we can do to maybe help others as well as ourselves. So
that's it. Let's do it.
Stay safe. As we sit here today, we're still dealing with this pandemic, which kind of helps with what we're doing. But we do.
It gives people time to stop and think about it.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
Exactly. So stay safe, and we'll talk soon. See you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. If there's a topic that you'd like to see us cover, please visit our website, secondact.tv. And we have a little red suggestion box in the upper right-hand corner of the site. Just click on that, drop us a line. We'd love to hear from you. See you next time.